Recently, I've been reading parts of this excellent anthology, Divine Right and Democracy, an anthology of political writing in Stuart England. And it's a fantastic way to really immerse yourself in the political thought of 17th century England. It covers so many bases. It has more monarchist authors. It has bits from the Levellers, who sought to give the common man the vote in an incredibly radical way for the time. It has something from Hobbes, something from John Locke. It's well worth the time and money. It'll only cost you a fiver second hand. But the introduction really got me thinking about the developments, what made the 17th century and the English Civil War time so incendiary, so transformative for political thought in England. And the editor, David Wootton, in his excellent introduction, asks three important questions to this end. Why did most English people in the early 17th century believe that they were ruled by an absolute monarch? And when and why did they stop believing this? When and how did the doctrine of popular sovereignty, the foundation of any democratic theory, become established? When and how did people come to believe that the purpose of political society was not so much to create a God-fearing community as to provide the framework within which individuals could compete in the pursuit of private wealth and, in so doing, cooperate in creating national prosperity? And these are the things I find fascinating in England, in Britain's history. And so much of it does hinge on the issue of sovereignty, of who has the right to exercise sovereignty, what balance of power should there be between the king and parliament. It's hard to remember sometimes just how explosive the act of killing Charles I really was, even for the parliamentarian army, for parliamentarian MPs, many of whom didn't want to get rid of the monarchy. They were simply hoping to get rid of the bishops, to establish maybe a Presbyterian form of church government, but they were hoping they could ultimately pressure Charles I into accepting those terms. And many of them were deeply disturbed by the regicide that ultimately came to pass. And it's not hard to think that that act really did create new conditions, a new reality where almost anything could seem possible once God's chosen man had been done away with. What else could be done away with? Could the world be turned upside down, as the phrase used by a leveller went? And I think in many senses, England had to grapple with those questions after getting thoroughly disillusioned with the Commonwealth under Cromwell. Monarchy was brought back in, but ultimately brought back the same problems, as everyone was thoroughly disgruntled with James II's Catholicism and feared what he might do. And really this set things up for the Enlightenment era, for an attempt to ground beliefs, actions, political theory on a basis other than the Bible. For if anything comes out of this anthology, it's that the Bible was the centre of debate, of discourse, used by both those arguing for the divine right of kings, for Charles I, but also used by a radical communist, such as Gerard Winstanley, the digger, who wanted to establish a sort of utopian communism during that time. And I suppose that shows really how malleable the biblical material can be, that there are many voices within that work that can be used in a number of ways. And maybe the Enlightenment arose out of realizing that things were exhausted in that regard, that maybe a new basis had to be found within which to construct a new way forward for mankind. Now, of course, we could then argue whether the idea of reason is really as straightforward or self-evident as many of the Enlightenment thinkers thought, and that's a whole other discussion. But to understand how we got to the place we are now, we need to understand how this hegemony of scripture, of the Christian tradition, or traditions, should I say, played a pivotal role until ultimately it maybe became too variable in the wake of the Reformation to offer a helpful way forward. So do pick this up and take a look if you're interested. It will be well worth your time.